Imagine waking up, checking your DeFi portfolio, and watching your yield go to zero. Not because the market crashed, but because someone found a bug the developers missed. That's happened over and over. Hundreds of millions of dollars drained from protocols that thought they were secure. Now here's the uncomfortable question. How do you know the protocol you're using right now isn't next? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand a completely new approach to DeFi security that's built differently from the ground up. Let's talk about how DeFi security has worked and why it keeps failing. The traditional model is simple. You write your smart contracts, you hire a security firm to do a one-time audit, they hand you a report, you fix the critical issues, and you ship. Done. Audited. Safe, right? Wrong. Here's the problem with that model. It's a snapshot. It looks at the code at one moment in time. The second you push a meaningful update, add a new feature, adjust a parameter, integrate a new asset, that audit is stale. And on-chain protocols are living systems. They change. The attack surface evolves. But most protocols treat security like a checkbox, not a continuous process. And attackers? They have all the time in the world to find the one thing your auditor missed. Here's a stat that should stop you cold. The vast majority of major DeFi exploits, we're talking protocol-draining hacks, happen in code that was already audited. Audited and still exploited. So if a traditional audit isn't enough, what is? This is where the story of UlMash begins. But to understand UlMash, you first need to understand what Microsoft built, because UlMash is directly inspired by it. In May 2026, Microsoft's security team published a blog post titled Defense at AI Speed, I'll link it in the description, describing a system they called MDASH, the Multi-Model Agentic Security Harness. What Microsoft built was not another AI tool that reads code and gives suggestions. It was a fully structured, adversarial, multi-stage pipeline that doesn't just find vulnerabilities, it proves them. The key insight Microsoft had was this: one model, one agent, one perspective isn't enough. You need a system where agents argue with each other, where nothing gets flagged unless it's been challenged and proven with a working trigger. That adversarial separation is what drives out false positives and surfaces the real exploitable bugs. And the results Microsoft published for MDASH? On the CyberGym public benchmark, our 507 real-world vulnerabilities, MDASH achieved an 45% success rate, roughly 5 percentage points ahead of the next best entry. On 28 historical Windows kernel vulnerabilities, 96% recall. On a separate set of 7 cases, 100% recall. And in a controlled test with 21 planted vulnerabilities, MDASH found all 21, with 0 false positives. Those are Microsoft's MDASH numbers, published on their security blog. Keep that in mind as we build to what UltraLiquidity did with that same architecture. So let's walk through exactly how the MDASH pipeline works, because this is the architecture UlMash is built on, step by step. There are 5 stages and every one of them matters. Stage 1, prepare. The system ingests the source code, the current on-chain state, all the canister interfaces, everything. It builds language-aware indices and a threat model specific to this code base. This isn't a generic scan, it's contextual from the very first step. Stage 2, scan. Specialized auditor agents go to work. They're looking for logic errors, reentrancy vulnerabilities, integer overflows, cross-canister trust boundary issues, the full taxonomy of smart contract attack surfaces. These agents are running across multiple model types, frontier models, distilled models, and independent counterpoint models that are designed to disagree. Stage 3, validate. This is where it gets interesting. Separate debater agents take every candidate vulnerability found in Stage 2 and argue against it. They challenge whether it's actually reachable, whether it's actually exploitable. This adversarial layer is what filters out the noise. Stage 4, dedupe. Semantically equivalent findings get collapsed. You don't want 50 agents all independently finding the same issue and flooding the report. Stage 5, prove. And this is the stage that makes the whole thing different. Nothing, absolutely nothing, gets reported unless a proof agent has constructed a working trigger and executed it. No working trigger, no finding. That's the bar. If you're just joining us, hit pause for 1 second and think about what that last stage means. Traditional audits flag potential issues. The MDASH architecture only flags proven ones. That is a fundamentally different standard. Now, let's talk about what makes ULMASH unique, even within that framework. If this kind of deep dive into DeFi security and the internet computer is useful to you, hit subscribe and drop a like. It genuinely helps us keep making content like this. Now back to ULMASH, ULAD, quick break, because this video is literally about the security layer inside UltraLiquidity, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you what UltraLiquidity actually is. UltraLiquidity is a yield-focused decentralized lending and stablecoin protocol, built entirely on-chain on the internet computer. And ULMASH isn't some external bolt-on, it runs as Rust canisters on the internet computer itself. No off-chain scanners, no centralized security servers, no external CI pipeline. The orchestration, the finding storage, the trigger verification, all of it executes on-chain, sharing the same trust model as the protocol it protects. And critically, it doesn't just run once. It rescans on every meaningful code change. Continuous, on-chain, adversarial security, that's the design. Now, ULMASH is built to work the same way as Microsoft's MDASH, but to be fully transparent, ULMASH itself has not yet been independently benchmarked or tested on UltraLiquidity. The performance numbers I cited earlier are Microsoft's MDASH results, not ULMASH's own verified results. What UltraLiquidity has done is take that proven architecture and implement it natively on-chain. If you want to follow the UltraLiquidity build and see how this evolves, the link is in the description. Go check it out. Let's zoom out and talk about why running security on-chain on the internet computer is actually a big deal architecturally. Most security systems, even sophisticated AI-driven ones, run off-chain. A separate server, a separate CI environment, a separate trust domain entirely. That creates a gap. The security system and the protocol it's protecting don't share the same execution environment, the same consensus guarantees, the same verifiability. On the internet computer, canisters are WebAssembly programs that hold both their code and their state, replicated across a subnet of node machines under Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus. A subnet stays correct as long as fewer than 1/3 of its nodes are faulty or malicious. And chain key cryptography means nodes hold only shares of a signing key. At least 2/3 must cooperate to sign any result. Anyone can verify that result against a single public key. When ULMASH runs as canisters on that substrate, its findings aren't just output from a script somewhere. They're on-chain state, produced under the same consensus and verifiability guarantees as everything else the protocol does. That's a fundamentally different trust model than "trust us, we ran a scan." Let me give you a concrete way to think about what we just described. Imagine a bank vault where the security camera footage is stored inside the vault, not in a back office somewhere that could be compromised separately. The security evidence and the thing being secured share the same protection boundary. That's the architectural idea here. The scanner is part of the chain. Now let's connect the dots to what UltraLiquidity is actually protecting with ULMASH, because the protocol has real complexity. You've got balancer-style weighted AMM pools with configurable token weights and swap fees. You've got over-collateralized borrowing. You've got boosted pools that automatically put idle assets into yield strategies. You've got a hooks framework that lets pools implement dynamic fees, rebalancing logic, or completely custom behavior. You've got two yield-bearing stablecoins, uxUSD, backed by strategy preferred shares, and UYUSD, backed by those plus Strategy's common stock MSTR. You've got native Bitcoin and Ethereum integration through on-chain canisters acting as non-custodial BTC and ETH wallets. And you've got the Ultra token functioning as lending collateral and for governance staking. Every one of those surfaces, the cross-canister calls, the collateral math, the pool logic, the stablecoin mechanics, is a potential attack vector. ULMASH is designed to scan across all of it, not once, continuously. Here's the question I want you to sit with. What is your security costing you right now? Not in fees, in trust. Every time you deposit into a DeFi protocol, You are making a trust assumption about their security posture. Most of the time, that assumption is based on a PDF, a report from 6 months ago. UlMash is a bet on a different answer to that question, one where the security system is never done, never stale, and never separate from the protocol itself. So let's land this. Here's what UlMash actually represents in the DeFi landscape. First, the architecture is not invented from scratch. It's adapted from a multi-model agentic system that Microsoft built and published results on. That lineage matters. The design choices, adversarial agent separation, the 5-stage pipeline, the prove or don't report standard, all of those come from a system that Microsoft benchmarked at 88.45% on 1,507 real-world vulnerabilities on the CyberGym benchmark. Second, the implementation is genuinely novel. Running this pipeline as on-chain Rust canisters on the internet computer, with recurring scans triggered by IC CDK timers, findings stored on-chain, and the whole thing sharing the protocol's trust model, that hasn't been done this way before. Third, the standard is higher. The bar isn't, we found some issues. The bar is, we built a working trigger. No trigger, no finding. That filters noise and surfaces what actually matters. And fourth, and I want to be fully honest here because this matters, UlMash has not yet been independently benchmarked. The numbers I cited are Microsoft's MDASH numbers. UlMash is built to the same architecture and is designed to work the same way, but its own performance on UltraLiquidity has not yet been independently verified. That transparency is part of why I think this project is worth watching. In the next video, we're going deeper into how UltraLiquidity's stablecoin uxUSD is designed to generate yield from Strategy's preferred shares and what that actually means for DeFi native income. Because the security layer we just described, it exists to protect something, and what it's protecting might be one of the most unusual yield mechanisms in crypto right now. Don't miss that one.